All right, welcome to Engine House Training's live podcast number 4. So I kind of lured you all in with some false advertising last week. I said we were going to do search this week, but unfortunately, due to some circumstances of some line of duty deaths due to the whole COVID thing, some of the guys that we really wanted their ideas and input for search were unable to make it. So we're going to push that back to next week. So before we get going, once again, we've had several people, departments who've been involved in this podcast who are engine house training instructors or friends of engine house training instructors, guys that are O'Byrne instructors as well that have been influenced by line of duty deaths because of this virus. So let's take a moment of silence for those guys and keep them in our thoughts and prayers. All right. Well, so today we're going to go ahead and introduce some of our engine company guys and we're going to launch the our engine ops portion of this podcast. Up until this point, it's all been truck work, but let's be realistic. Every fire department in the country at least has one engine. Every fire department in the country does not have a truck company and definitely does not have a rescue company, unfortunately. But it's really the backbone of what we do and the most important thing we'll do. So kind of new to it. Most of the other guys that are going to talk on engine work, but I do want Steve Hybreeder. He's a co-owner of Engine House Training. Been the lead instructor of all our engine op programs and the developer of our engine op programs for years now. So I'll let him introduce himself.
Well, I think you covered it. Captain with Metro West. I've been Metro West for 30 years. Did a couple of years before that at Lime. And engine work's kind of become my thing that I really enjoy. My first 7 years as a captain, I was assigned to a rescue company. So all we did was truck work. They disbanded the rescue and moved the people around. So I went back to an engine and just kind of dove into it head first from there and just trying to address some issues that I saw, not really shortcomings, but just some things that were making our life more difficult. And that's kind of where my passion has come from for engine work and the research we've done and a lot of the changes that we've been able to make with my department for engine work. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with this.
Awesome, Steve. We're looking forward to making this doing the engine ops series. I haven't told you this, but we're going to try and do it once a month, once every other month, and build upon subjects. So next up, our engine ops guys that's heavily involved, one of our instructors, Kyle Sanders. He's been on some of the podcasts, but I don't know if we've ever formally introduced him. So Kyle, you're up.
Kyle Sanders. I work with Steve over at Metro West also. I do a lot of the engine company classes with Engine House along with Steve, and kind of the same thing, just working at my career department for the last few years of really just pushing engine company work and just working with the different hose loads and everything to go along with that. So
awesome. And then lastly, far as Engine House goes, and then I'll kick it over to our guest from O'Byrne. Let him introduce himself and the guys from O'Byrne. But co-owner Gary Graff, Engine House Training, he heads up all the hydraulics and the pumping portion of any classes we have and is pretty implemental in all the engine company curriculum as well. So, Gary.
Oh, I'm ready to get started. Let's hit the topic. They don't want to hear about me. One of the biggest things real quick, that one of the biggest things with me, as far as just to give myself why I'm kind of interested in this so wholeheartedly, is didn't realize the first 15 to 20 years of my career how much stretching lines you work your ass off to do things that there's a lot easier, more proficient way. And the same thing on pumping trucks, why you get, it seems like everybody has their own thought, their own idea or everything else. And a lot of it's just ideal concepts, not necessarily the correct way to do it or the most efficient way to do it. And once I learned that, hey, there's a better way to do this, realized how much we'd actually been working our ass off in the wrong direction for many a year. So that's kind of where I was like, oh my God, I've been doing this not wrong, but not the best way to do it. So hopefully share some of that today.
Awesome. All right, our old Burn brothers. We got Big Juicy from down south, Memphis, and Nick. You guys want to say hello? Introduce yourselves. I know Juicy, you've been on a couple of these, so I probably know a little bit about you.
Yo, Big Juicy here. Just kind of started about a year and a half ago in Memphis, but came from small town Nebraska, where we were kind of fortunate, where I was an engine driver for the last 6 years of my job there. In Memphis now, work downtown on a pumper, and we do some high-rise stuff, some commercial building stuff. So we got a different array, and being in the bigger city kind of really opened my eyes to some different engine stuff. So looking forward to being on today and sharing some stuff.
And Nick, and then we'll stop boring you guys with introductions and we'll get into it.
My name is Nick Kentz. I work for the city of Elkhart. I was the ninja boss for the last 9 years. I was transferred back to the truck, but been very fortunate to be able to do a lot of things with Elkhart grass in our backyard. So other than that, get on talk about ninja stuff.
Awesome. Well, welcome, Nick. Hopefully, I don't know if your audio everyone was choppy with everyone or just me. Hopefully that works itself out. So, hey, kind of want to start it off with Steve, since you're kind of the leader of our engine company curriculum. But, you start every class off, I believe, with Andy Frederick saying, as the first line goes, so goes the fire. So just get right into it. Talk about, from hose loads, nozzle selection, your whole hose line package, and how important that first line is to get into place and operating at every fire we go to.
All right. Well, I think what it mostly comes down to is stretching lines, and you have to look at your company. So, and I'm sure everybody does this, but we had to design our hose loads, our stretches, our tactics around our manning. So our manning is 4 on an engine with a minimum of 3, which is 90% of the time we're at 3. So we train everything to officer, the driver, and a firefighter. So our hose load stretches had to make that easy. So in addition to that, even back that up further before you can start worrying about how you're going to load your hose. We had to figure out how much water do you want to flow when you cross the threshold into that structure. How much water do you expect your crews to flow? There's a national standard, or it's not really a standard, but an acceptable national GPM. Does your department have one? Do you need one? We decided on 150 GPM through training and research and development. We decided 150 GPM is what we want when we cross the threshold for an interior attack. So then we have to build from there between your hose, the actual hose itself, your nozzles, and then how do you know you're flowing that water? So yeah, it's great to say, I want to flow 150 GPM. How do you know you're flowing it? How can you verify? And what we found, the math is great for the hydraulics class. And I'm a math nerd, so I kind of like doing the math, but that's not realistic. So what you have to do is you have to verify your flows on each pre-connected line. So the way we approach this is we got a pressure gauge, which then we put behind the nozzle on every one of our pre-connected lines. And what this allows you to do is we then run our engine pressure up till we get the desired nozzle pressure, whether you run 50, 75, or 100 nozzles, run it up till you get that, and then you can mark your pump discharge pressure, which does a couple things. It makes it easier for your driver, and you know that you are actually flowing 150 GPM, and we'll just go with that number for now, 150 GPM from that pre-connected line. Because if I'm just doing the math, what's one thing the math doesn't account for, and that is your plumbing, your piping, and everything in the engine doesn't account for it by doing the math. So you need to do real world pressure tests. Now we took it a step further, and we bought a flow meter that we then put on the intake side of the pump just to verify that we're actually flowing that 150, that the pressure says we are and the flow test says we are. So we're verifying that, yes, we are actually flowing it. Yes, you have to pump it at this. the last engine that we just got rid of had a rear mount pump, had a 200-foot crosslay in the rear bumper and a 200-foot crosslay in the front bumper. But the front bumper crosslay, which was the farthest from the pump, actually had less friction loss in it than the 200-foot pre-connect that was right next to the pump, just due to the amount of bends that you had to come from the pump to come into the discharge tray. So had we just gone by the numbers, we'd have been way off, and we'd be over pumping one line and under pumping the other line. And we found this out by doing the pressure test. So the biggest thing is figuring out what you're flowing, how you can flow it. Then you move into how can I make this stretch with the manpower that we have. So like I said, we base everything on 3 because that's what I can guarantee every time. Whereas like Jeff, you guys, your engines they're always going to have 4. So you can plan on 4, and anybody that has more than that, God bless you. I'm jealous of 4. And you just have to work from there and stretch every day. So that's a good place to start. And if anybody wants to add more to it, for at least for this first one on engine ops, because we can go for a long time, and if you get me talking, I'll never stop. So we'll pause at that part of it. And that's the stuff that's it before we ever leave the station to go on a call. We got a lot of work to do beforehand.
I'll kind of add on to some of your stuff, Steve. I know we just started the last few engine company classes, adding in the knowing your flow and all that. And that's been pretty big with everybody, all the districts we've gone to, kind of a big eye opener. Because like you said, knowing the pumping of your truck or the piping and everything and how all that plays out. And then moving on to, like you said, stretching every day. Me and Gary did a class a couple years ago where we're just kind of the start to yours of knowing your flow. And it was a huge eye opener when we started putting these inline gauges on all the lines and having them stretch it. And we started out with just, hey, pump the truck at what you guys think you're going to, what you guys practice now. Just pump it as you are. And we put the inline gauges in. It was a huge eye opener for a lot of these places we go to, and realizing like, oh my gosh, we're way under pumping our lines to get our nozzle pressure that we're expecting to have there at the tip. And then just everything with stretching, you throw a kink in this, and to really show how much you lose just by a little kink in your line is really big eye opening for a lot of places. So we started with, you mentioned something stretching every day. I've done this a few times with our classes, and then kind of worked into it at work itself, especially if I have a newer guy up there trying to get that line off and trying to just get that thought process through it, and then charging it so they can actually see, hey, how much you lose with kinks and all the above. But I think a big part of what you were saying is actually knowing your flow. If anybody here listening, if you haven't tested your lines yet, that's a huge thing to actually get on there and see what you're actually pumping these things at.
Yeah, I found that all interesting because, when I worked in the suburbs before I got in the city, it was always kind of, none of this was out there. It wasn't brought to the forefront, it was a couple of years before, or a year right before 9/11 and all that stuff. So I didn't know much about Andy Fredericks, unfortunately. And we kind of just all had 100 PSI automatic nozzles. And, in the city, it's kind of in big departments, it's hard to implement things with inline pressure gauges. And, I don't want to go too much into what we do in the city because truthfully, I'd never been on an engine company. We had quits when I came on, and then I went to the squad, never been assigned to an engine on the regular. But I would like to see, are you guys doing any of this stuff in another big city, Juicy, or we kind of preface this talk with some things that going from a rural department where you did all this to kind of city departments can be a little bit different, correct?
Absolutely. So I came from a 4-station suburb department of Omaha, and we flowed a ton of water in parking lots. We got flow meters out, pitot gauges. We knew our flow, and spent a lot of time working on those evolutions. And I'll tell you, they gave me the best foundation. We were driven by guys that went to H-Rock down in Florida. The Book of Andy, we were firm believers, still are firm believers in that.
and that really set me up for a good foundation for being an engine guy in a big city. I get to the big city, and all that got thrown out the window, and we're using combination nozzles with pistol grips. We have a policy in place where we won't blow over 100 psi on the pump unless we're hooked to a secure water source. So our operations are a little different, where we're first in does not grab a hydrant, second in reverse blades to the pumper, and then we can bump to appropriate pressure with the appropriate nozzle. Memphis was a little behind the times in the whole smooth bore combination nozzle thing, and it really wasn't brought in with open arms for a smooth bore nozzle. You'll find some that think it's the devil, and a couple people in between. Education's been really hard for us. I think we got 1,900 firemen, and to get them all through the training center and properly trained is a task that's hard to accomplish sometimes. But based off that, it comes down to company level training and what district you're in. I got a buddy in the truck with me now. We're driving. He works in a district that is shotgun houses, 900 square feet, and they're very efficient with their hose and have the fire normally out before they catch a plug. Where I'm working downtown, we don't pull our pre-connects very often. We're working off high-rise packs, so it kind of really is diversified in what engine ops you need to know. But for us, it kind of comes down to working at that company, being able to deploy your hose in a proper fashion, no kinks, knowing where to chase out, and build on from there with your company at that company level. That's kind of things we found being engine guys in a little bit bigger city from a smaller department.
All right, hey Nick, forgive me, I don't know much about Elkhart, how big you are, anything like that. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that, and what are you guys doing up there in Elkhart, Indiana? Are you using task force tips nozzles or what?
Actually, yeah, no. We're a 7-department fire department. We have 7 houses, 2 rescue engines, 5 engines, and then 1 truck. We cover 49 square miles daytime population with the RV industry. You guys hear me good? Because of the RV industry, we have 350,000 people.
Nick, I'm not.
We have
Nick, I'm not trying
very
to be.
Different things going on. We have our tallest building is 10 stories. So I have a little bit of a standpipe perk, but not a whole lot. Mostly comes from the rig. Yeah. You guys, no.
Nick, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, your audio is all messed up. Maybe it's your headset. Yeah, you're breaking up a lot, so maybe it's your maybe it's your headset. Maybe it's your internet connection. You may want to try and turn off your video. Sometimes that helps your audio.
Yeah.
Hey, Torres, you want to? I know you're a truck guy, but while he's working on that, we'll come back to him. You're another big city guy. You want to talk about
okay,
your engine work down there?
all right. Bear with me. I'm sorry about that, fellas.
There you go. I don't do all that pedogate shit. Sorry. Stuff. I can't even spell it. So I don't know what, I know what they are. I came from the volunteer world. I get what that stuff is. We have it at a part-time gig. I know how to use it, but we're definitely not that intense at the city. I swear I'd probably get my ass beat if I broke out that tool and said, let's flow a line and let me put it on there. I'd probably get laughed at, probably more than anything. But we're real simple. We're really big into fog streams. I can tell you that. Everything's fog, nozzles. I couldn't tell you the brand. Don't care. Water comes out of it. It works. It puts out fire. I'm happy with it. Do I like over fog? Yeah, kind of, sort of. I kind of like the smoothbore. It's pretty cool. But it does have its benefits, pros and cons. Fog. I do like fogging out a room. I'm really big into that. I'm big into fogging out rooms. I do like it when an engine guy fogs it out for me to see stuff. So it does have its benefits. But every area is different. Our city's huge. Everyone's different. I can't speak of high-rise stuff. I won't. I came from where I always came off the back, which we had horseshoes, 2.5 to 1.75 to 1.25 spin down shutoff pipe to a gated Y to 100 feet to 150 feet of 1.75 to a fog nozzle. I've always used that. That's what we always use. But where I'm at now, our places were pretty. We can use pre-connects. It's nice. They're 1.5 story, raised ranches, Chicago bungalows, even a Georgian. That's all I need. I don't need more than 200 feet of line. Hell, half of it's already out on the front lawn. So I have to give kudos to definitely Aaron Fields and them. I've been through their classes. His class is a bunch. Not only through him, but through the guys from the Shut Up and Train out of Michigan. They're fantastic. I went through the class. I learned a lot. I'd have to say I'm a little bit more efficient now because of that class. It's actually breaks it down common sense how to flink out hose. I can't tell you how to lay your hose. I'm not going to tell you how to load it. That's to who's your own, but it is what it is. I truly think that our engine guys are, they're quick, they're fast, efficient. But like I said, I'm out of my league here with you guys. You guys got pedal gauges and fucking all kinds of good stuff. I don't know any of that stuff, so that's on you guys. I definitely respect it. I respect you guys a lot. I'll just listen to you guys. You tell me.
No, and it's kind of the point I was trying to make, and we'll get back to Nick here in a second. Yeah, but it's kind of the point I was trying to make, that bigger departments, and Steve talked about our manpower, and I know Chicago's got more manpower than St. Louis. I think Memphis is right around same as us. But dude, we have so many people we throw at fires that if we make a mistake and leave some hose in the front yard, like we were talking about some fires Gary was on before this, if we leave some hose out on the truck, there's always plenty of dudes standing around in the front yard that could lighten up that line and bring it up to the door for us. So I'm going to steer this in the direction of some of the stuff we can do with limited manpower, because let's be realistic. There's way more firefighters riding with 2 and 3 people on a truck and making stretches with 2 and 3 people on a truck than 4 or 5 and definitely 6 people on apparatus. But I'd like to see if Nick got his audio fixed. I'd love to hear what he had to say and see how that's going. Nick, how's your internet?
Can you guys hear me now?
Sounds a little better.
A little better?
Yeah.
All right, we'll try this again. Like I said, I work for a department that covers 49 square miles. We have 7 firehouses. I was an engine boss for 9 years downtown. I did some standpipe work, but I worked really close with Elkhart Brass. And my biggest thing that I learned from one of our engine officers early on was we run smooth bores and understanding the internal diameter of the hose. And, from the start of just learning your flow, get your friction loss, knowing that a smooth bore was at 50 for inside work and outside work was 80 at the tip. And then coming back from there and understanding your pressures. When I started, we had some old bosses that they preferred the combination tip. And that was an SM20, and it was the thumbs up or thumbs down if you had too much pressure. So, did that come through okay?
It's a lot better. We can understand you, so roll
cool.
with it. All right. I would like to point out that I think hydraulic ventilation we use the heck out of it. Sounds like Taurus uses the heck out of it. People get really bent up on that. It's way more efficient with a fog nozzle or adjustable nozzle, but it's still doable with a smooth bore. If you go half open on the bail and whip that line a bit, you're still going to move air regardless. What I kind of want to get into now, because it affects the most amount of people. Steve, when you're training people and you're drilling, what are we doing in minimum manpower situations? How are we setting up ourselves for success? Not all of us are a 30-year member of a department have the influence that you have where you can essentially design your own trucks. We get the trucks in St. Louis that they give us, and we got to find a way to make that work. So I'm not necessarily talking about, low pre-connects or, cross lay setup or low hose bed setups. I'm more talking about drilling and, using what we got to our advantage, or at least making it easier to use.
I'd say the biggest thing, and kind of what we've done with our hose loads, and like you mentioned, we were able to design our trucks to make them a little bit more user friendly. But we design it with our loads and where our trucks is that load is designed to be pulled by one firefighter and stretch. That doesn't matter if it's in the rear of the building, to the front door, or wherever. We try and keep it so that one firefighter can stretch. Again, looking at the minimum manning of 3 people. Obviously, the officer's doing his 360 and radio report and all the good stuff the officer gets to do. The nozzle firefighter is then responsible for getting that line stretched to where it needs to be. The driver then clears the bed and helps finish the stretch. But that's kind of where we look at it when you're at minimum manning, is you've got to find a way, whatever load you use, however it's loaded, wherever it's at on your truck, to make that stretch by yourself, because we just don't have the manning. And a lot of times we'll have other companies show up rather quickly, or we're waiting for help. So it's going to be the 3 of them making that stretch. So I would say just whatever it is you do, practice a lot with it and make that stretch try making the stretch with one person. Try to go around back. Not every fire you're going to stretch to the front door. So if you got to make a stretch to the rear for a walkout basement, if it's an apartment complex and the entrance is off a garden or center courtyard, how can you make that stretch? And then if whatever load or stretch you're doing, if it doesn't work, try and come up with different ways to make that work, however that is, if it's a leader line or hose bundles or whatever works. But that's kind of where we started with it, is how can one firefighter make this stretch? And we've taken it to stretch into the second floor balconies for apartments or hotels with the outside balconies, one firefighter to make that stretch. And it took us a while to get there, but that's what our goal is for short manning, is that one firefighter makes the stretch. That's a good place to start. Whatever you're using or how you're doing it, do it with one firefighter.
And it sounds like everything in the fire service, Steve, it comes down to reps and putting in the, I know somebody mentioned the nozzle forward guys and those guys. It comes down to sweat equity and putting in the work to getting good at the little things and building upon that. Building off the whole training thing, we got Gary on. He's a training officer, and I also kind of want to pick his brain because he runs with sometimes his department maybe based on manpower issues or not issues, but the way they run. But I know he runs with mutual aid departments that even run with 2 guys on an apparatus, so a driver and a captain, and that's a challenge. How are you running training in you do a lot of mutual aid training, Gary. So what are you doing? What kind of drills and things are you preaching out your neck of the woods?
It's kind of back to what Steve said, is just practicing doing it with one person. We sit on a unique bubble where we've got 3 guys on a truck. Depending upon which way we pull out of our engine house going mutual aid, we make a right, we're going mutual aid to a department that has 3 to 4 people on a truck. We make a left, we're going to departments that have 2 people on a truck. So that manpower element becomes huge with that. But like I said, it's going back to what Steve said, practicing what can you do with one person. The unfortunate part on some of these are right away whenever guys encounter something that's a difficult stretch or a hose load, then right away they start trying to find a fault in it. You know, the truck's set up like this, or it's set up the type of hose that we have, or the type of load that we carry. And again, if you were to pull it off a little bit more, sometimes where we become a victim of that is maybe we don't have enough fires where the hose line comes off enough, so we don't really have a comprehension of what's not going to work for us. Well, we can fix some of that through training. Go out and pull your hose line. Don't just pull it off in a parking lot. Go out. Again, emphasizing what Steve said, get your most difficult stretch that you're going to have in your area. Go around to practice going around to the back. We're seeing more and more vented walkout basement fires. They're going up the exterior of the building. Next thing we know, we have an attic fire. We need to get a line to the rear of the building. How long is it going to take you to do that with that one person? Another thing with it too, that we really try emphasizing in, especially through training, and it's more difficult to do to a newer person, but teaching them to kind of slow down a little bit. Take a few seconds whenever you're doing your stretch. Sometimes guys, as soon as they get that hose, they'll take off, go, 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 go. And, take a few seconds, be methodical in your movement, move with a purpose, but don't all of a sudden get so fast in all of your movements that something goes astray on stretching your line. And then all of a sudden we're tripping over each other. And then we're trying to, that a lot of times that was where we start making our mistakes, but practice on that, train on that, to where those mistakes, you work through those tricks. Even when as you're doing your training, that's where you want to create your problems. I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago whenever we were talking about some stuff with basement fires. On training is where you want to create your problems, because that teaches you to become a problem solver. So as you're practicing doing your stretches, throw some extra problems on there, or a situation, or don't allow somebody to have enough pressure. As many times as you can throw extra little things at them during training. Again, the intent is not to mess with them or screw with them. Sometimes that's what people think. Oh, we're going to go to training and they're going to screw with us again. It's to get you to work through those problems as you have them whenever you get there. Throw some extra kinks in a line. So somebody starts flowing water. They know that the pressure doesn't feel right. Did you chase? The first thing they'll do for call for pressure. We'll start giving them more pressure. The problem wasn't pressure. It was a kink. Practice stretching the kinks. Just most of the time it goes back to the fundamentals and the little things that make a big difference in doing things with your hose stretch. That's another thing. We talk constantly on hose stretching, and I think it's been mentioned 3 or 4 times, but also when you're doing this, practice flowing your lines. Whatever pressure you pump it at, or whatever pressure you test it at, get on that line and flow that line, and flow it for an extended period of time. Know what that line is going to feel like as soon as you open it up and flow water. And if you do that enough, then whenever I open this line, this is what it should feel like. So as you're sitting at the threshold of the door, you first open that line, hey, I've got too much pressure. I don't have enough pressure. You get that feel of it, and you can tell that just by the feel of the line, if your pressure is off or if your flow is off. So a couple of different things. Again, it goes back to that cognitive skill of just continually doing it and being comfortable with it.
Yeah, I agree with all that. We had a handful of people jump in a little late. I just want to tell everyone we got the chat board running at the bottom. Tim's running that. Also, feel free if you got something to add, you got a point to add, you want to debate us. By no means, none of us are experts. You want to debate what we're saying, you got something you want to challenge or question, unmute yourself, state who you are, where you're from, let us know your question, and we'll get it answered. I mean, this is your guys' podcast. That's why we're all here. I do see a lot of videos out there, and I've been guilty of it. You see guys coming off the apparatus, and they're at a sprint stretching that hose line. And I'm not saying there's not a time and a place for that. And, sometimes you can be really, really good, and you should be at that level. But on the same time, Gary, you made an important part, and, this isn't a size up thing, but the guy stretching the line needs to size up, and sometimes you got to be patient, and that's the advantage to having a bundle of hose. You can have it on your shoulder. You're starting lead off. Maybe you're waiting for your captain to come from the back of the building. making sure you may actually pause right by the hose for a second to see what the captain wants, because, kind of airing out our own problem. This is years ago, but I let off on a building that it looked like it was this big apartment building, and it was blowing smoke out of the back. And we had a 4-inch line off to the plug, and we had the pre-connect being stretched, and the captain came around from his 360 and said, the fire's the next street over. And we already had all the hose line off because we got in a hurry. We probably jumped the gun a bit, and we ended up getting beat into our fire because we had 100 foot of 4-inch off and 200 feet of 1 3/4 that we had to break and just leave in the street, come back and get later, because we got in a bit of a hurry. So there's definitely a time and a place for that hustle and being able to sprint with stretching a Minuteman load or whatever. But you also need to know where the fire is and where you're stretching and what size hose line you need before you commit and you get all the lines off the truck. Juicy, I'd love to hear your opinion on that and what you're thinking of how this conversation's going. You there, buddy?
Hey, Jeff, I got something.
Who is that, Dave?
Yeah.
Dave. Oh, I didn't see you sneak in. Go ahead, buddy. Let's
Hey,
hear it. Sounds like Juicy's busy.
Yeah, no worries. One thing that we kind of got burnt with, I had a hard lesson with, is guys recognizing and really getting good at short stretches. Where we work, we come off with 3 on a truck. We have a short, most of the stuff is a very short stretch. You're talking 15, 20 yards tops on the very large side to get to the front door. A lot of the newer guys will drop that load at the front door without flaking it out first. So we developed some ways and practice some ways. I work at a combination apartment, so we have to really work on ways to send this stuff out, even on video, just so people are aware of how to do a short stretch, split stretch where the engineer can go half the bundle one way, the back stepper takes it the other way. Everybody chases kinks. That's a big thing that we really have been emphasizing on. Nobody's too good to not chase a kink, so everybody gets the kinks. If you see it, fix it. But really, the one thing that we have a 200-foot pre-connect is that's a lot of hose for the district that we work at. But it was more of a big lesson learned on how to think to pull that hose different besides the standard way, to really get after it and, really think outside the box. If you got a short stretch, what you're going to do. That worked out really well. We got the guys really thinking, okay, if we put up, cars here, front doors here, how are we going to stretch around? Are we going to do a split stretch, short stretch, regular stretch, whatever it may be? But yeah, that's something that worked real well for a 3-man truck, is really thinking outside the box. But like, everybody's talking, it took us getting out and doing it and trying it. But I hate to say it, but one of the lessons learned, it was a bad stretch for us to begin with. That's why we really got into it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, and I'm going to steer this in that direction shortly. I know Tim. We hadn't heard from him yet today. He might have something to add, and then I'll have a couple questions for the group. So Tim, what do you got for us, buddy?
Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you're not using that Chromebook.
Good. No, I'm on the Big Mac now, so we're good. You
borrowed your wife's computer?
I did. I'm leasing it actually, so I got to pay her for this. Just to tack on what Dave was talking about, short stretches. I feel like in bigger cities, we might have a little bit of a trouble with longer stretches. Like Torres talked about, we pull that 200-foot pre-connect all the time. And if something is 250 feet away, we don't necessarily do a great job of recognizing that. And sometimes, it might be a little too late. You hate to see guys come up short, but estimating that stretch, and I know we touched on that a little bit, not last week, but maybe a week before, about, taking the wheel and doing some of that stuff and being able to estimate the stretch. But, short is an issue but long is an issue as well. So being able to estimate that stretch and recognizing houses with a real far setback and some things like that, definitely something else to consider and keep in mind when you're sizing things up and when you're pulling lines, because you hate to do all that work and get everything in place and then you end up coming up short. So just something else to keep in mind.
Now that's a perfect segue, and to what I was going to bring up next was the off the wall stretches. And Steve, we hit it in all our classes, but 99.99% of the fire service runs 200-foot pre-connects with a fixed gallonage or a smoothbore nozzle on it, and that works probably for 99% of the fires. But what has happened since that is two things. We've got very, very bad at reading buildings and setbacks and stuff like Tim was talking about and estimating the stretches. And we can't work with dead beds. I noticed there's a trend, if you follow any apparatus manufacturers, going back to low hose beds and dead loads. And also throwing in along that same caveat, if they don't do dead loads, just hose stacked up, they may have multiple levels of sizes and lengths of pre-connects. They might have a 150-footer, they might have a 100-foot trash line, all the way up to 300 and 400-foot 1 3/4 pre-connects based on their response areas. So I want to get it to Nick and hear what you guys are doing on Elkhart, how you're dealing with both the short stretches and long stretches, if it's a drilling type thing, or if you're designing your apparatus accordingly. I know in our department, we pull a 200-foot pre-connect, and if it's longer than that, our only option, based on how our apparatus is set up, we have to take bundles of hose and add, or we can do like a leader line stretch or a courtyard stretch with 2.5 or 3 inch, and then add our high-rise bundles and 1 3/4 or 2 inch bundles onto that. So what are you guys doing up in Elkhart, Nick?
So kind of along the lines of what Tim was talking about, we have a we're a big pre-connect department. And then on the back end, we have each engine is set up for their district of a dead load, minimum of 600 feet into a 2.5 nozzle with 100-foot of 1 3/4. And the officer has the option of pulling either one based on the fire that they have presented. We actually had a fire 2 weeks ago that first 2 lines were short by about 75 feet. And that's because they were both pre-connects. And the biggest problem was for that company really doesn't drill. Over the last probably 5 years, I've been very fortunate to be in the academy and helping doing our drilling and getting our guys to the mindset that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And our guys have really taken the focus out of getting that line out correctly, setting themselves up to win within the first 25 feet of the door by dropping the line, grabbing the nozzle in the first coupling, and being able to deploy it so they have 75 feet to be able to go inside the building. One of the other biggest issues, or the positives for it, is our crews have actually been getting out and drilling. And I took this from Lombardo and I introduced it probably 3 or 4 years ago. I'd ask my guys how many times we were going to stretch today. And after an EMS run, if they said we're stretching 3, we would stretch on the building we were at to the front door. Or if I'd come through on my 360 make-believe fire, if I said keep it and we're redirecting the line, the guys would redirect the line to the backside if it was a multiple dwelling or whatnot. But those are some of the things that kind of helped us, or helped the engine company I was on before I left, or the truck. But we had a fire chief 4 years ago that he thought every rig needed to be the same. And so he actually shortened our dead loads to a minimum of 400 feet at 2.5. And being a large factory city, that wasn't really good for about 3 of our engine districts. So now we're actually setting up the engines how they should be for their own district. And then our current administration, they're actually they're letting those engines come in and build their district, their rigs based on what their district is set up. So our latest one, we've been buying Sultans, and their hose bed is a low hose bed, and for the most part, the guys like it. We still have the 2 cross plates, entry quarters, but we run smooth bore, pre-connect 2.5 off the back end, and a 2.5 into our bottom line. That's on an 1.25 smooth bore to a 15, 16 smooth bore 1.75 that they can break apart.
Yeah, that's your audio was getting kind of shoddy at the end. Not trying to cut you off, Nick, but
Did you get all that, Jeff?
yeah, we got most of it. You were starting to break up at the end, so it's awesome that you guys are getting input on your apparatus and stuff. And unfortunately, that's easier at smaller departments. 5, 6, maybe 10 engine houses. The guys like Memphis, Chicago, St. Louis. We get what we get. So this is out of my wheelhouse. I can't design apparatus. I don't know much about that, but Steve's done several now. I picked his brain on what he's done. I'd love to hear your thoughts, Steve, on apparatus setup. And I realize we're blowing through and we're missing stuff, and we'll come back and we'll follow up with shorter episodes that maybe spend the whole episode on one part of engine work, and we'll build from it. But Steve, I'd love to hear where you're at with apparatus design, and you've been doing it a long time, brother, and so has Gary. He's been involved in apparatus purchases as well. Sanders, I think you're getting into it. So any of you guys could take this, but you guys have been around a while. I've seen the apparatus go probably full circle. So Steve, I'd love to hear what you got on this.
So since I've been on the truck committee, we're on our 3rd generation of apparatus. And our goal this time was we wanted a low hose bed, but we also wanted everything to be reachable from the ground. So the biggest complaint I heard from all of our people was everything's too high. The trucks are being pumpers, tanker, rescue, hazmat. They have to do all this stuff. We're not fortunate like a lot of the city departments where you can have specialized, because we don't have truck companies. We have a rescue, but it's cross-man. So our engines have to do more. Well, obviously then we want bigger booster tanks, hose beds go higher. Everybody has to climb up on the truck. So that biggest thing was making the truck more firefighter friendly. Back to that short staffing, one firefighter can pull the hose off, whether it's our static bed, whether it's the 2.5 blitz line, which is a static bed, or the pre-connects. Everything was low down so that nobody had to crawl on the truck or climb up on the truck to get anything. So that's kind of what we started with, and we designed the truck around that. And like I said, we actually have our 5th truck on order right now. We've been very fortunate. We standardized the trucks. They do have the flexibility to change because we bought 2 Quints, the one at our station 1 and the one at our station 3 are designed the same. The companies are kind of given a little flexibility with how they load it. So they did their hose loads differently, as kind of what Nick was saying, individual areas. So they're a little bit different, but the truck itself is designed the same. So if I'm a float firefighter or a float driver or a float officer, that truck is set up the same. The lines come off the same. And it's all from the ground. So it was all about being user friendly and being able to reach stuff from the ground versus climbing up on the truck. That's where we started with. And then we already knew what type of hose load we were going to because we found it worked best for our short staffing. So we made sure that the crosslays fit that. We made sure our engines are our hose wagons. So we made sure we had lots of room for a lot of hose on the hose wagons because the Quints can't carry much hose. So that's kind of where we started at with it. I don't know if Gary or Kyle has anything more to add to that.
Yeah, I do want to point out before Gary and Kyle jump in, you said you essentially have twins between your two quints. We found this kind of back to how we started this. You can have identical trucks that came one after another off the assembly line and have different friction loss for the same discharge on a different truck.
Absolutely.
So
that gets back to what we started with flow testing each pre-connect.
Well, I just wanted to point it out. So we're an SOG driven organization, and we run presets, and I'm not here to question what we do or why we do it, but if your organization is that way, the preset may work for one apparatus to get the right flow, but it might be too much pressure for another and too little for the third, and they came off the line, pumper 1, pumper 2, pumper 3 off the assembly line, and they're quote unquote identical, but the piping's different. The welds could have been a little different, or maybe the piping on the inside came from this lot number and the next piping came from that lot number. So you really have to do that on every truck, do your flow test and all the fancy
Absolutely.
gauges Mike doesn't know what they are. You have to do that for each individual truck, regardless of if they're twins or a fleet, identical. So back to Sanders, Gary, apparatus design. You guys got anything you want to add?
I'll kind of jump on what Steve was talking about. I work on one of our quints. With ours, like Steve said, they're both the same design. We do have on ours a couple different, the hose loaded differently in a couple spots. It's mainly just because where our ladders are on almost two opposite ends of town. So our stretches are where I work at further east is more urban than our other house, I would say. We have some different stretches for the short stretch, and then also some different obstacles with apartment complexes and stuff like that. And all of our pre-connects are pretty much the same as through the district, but in the backside, some of our dead loads and stuff like that are loaded a little bit different, some different lengths of hose, mainly just to meet what we need. But what I have found, and kind of going back, I know we've talked about checking our equipment, going with what Gary's talked about, is with this really making a point to, in the mornings when you get in, check how everything's loaded. Because we have had a few times that I've come in and I make it religiously every morning when I'm on the truck, go through and I check my pre-connects, check my hotel packs and all this. Because with floaters and stuff and kind of coming in from some of these other houses that might have something different, I've found multiple times that our hose loads are loaded completely different. And we train and stuff, so you know how to pull them, but just one of those things just really hit home on knowing if that's how you expect it to be loaded and that's what you're expecting to pull, or your other crew members as they show up, just going through and checking all that stuff as you go through. But our apparatus designs, like Steve said, is they're pretty much identical, and it's made it pretty nice throughout the entire board that no matter where you go, for the most part, everything's the same.
I'd like to add, make sure if you're running, like I said, we run smooth bores. We have some smooth bores for our 2.5s, and we have smooth bores for our high rise package, attack package, standpipe packages. But we run fogs. You need to check those nozzles. If you're running fogs, combination nozzles, you need to check those daily. If you're not running Elkhart or you don't have the upgraded steel or metal bales, you need to check the bales for cracks and possible damage every morning. Check the teeth on the combination nozzles, spin them off, make sure there's no dust or debris in there. That is a drawback to those particular nozzles. So checking your hose line in your loads is very important, but I would add, make sure you're checking your nozzles as well every morning. Gary, what do you got?
Kind of go back what Steve was talking about with some of the stuff with speccing your truck. We kind of have a similar problem with that. But a little bit different from what they have. We've got the majority of our district is a limited water area. So water supply becomes a little bit more of an issue. With that, sometimes guys want to concentrate more on the water versus how to get the hose off of the truck. So, kind of what Steve's talked about, our hose beds, all of a sudden now they're 8 to 9 foot in the air, and getting hose off of it becomes very difficult. So as you start looking at some of those things with your truck, again, you have to sometimes be a little bit creative. And a lot of times manufacturers will try to tell you what you can't do. Don't let them persuade you in the design of your truck. You need to design a truck that's going to work for you and be functional for you. There are certain things that, you might have to take some give and take on, but don't let the manufacturer kind of skew you one way or the other on that. Another thing, whenever you start talking about stuff with truck specs, one of the things that we've kind of started going a little bit more to is doing like all of our 2.5s as a dead load. Biggest thing with that is, like we talked about earlier, that 200 foot is nice, but we're finding more with a deep setback, even especially in some of our limited water areas. We've got longer driveways, and we might have a 75-foot setback to a house. So now you have to go to the basement, like we talked about 2-3 weeks ago, whenever that was. So you might need 250, 300 foot of line to get to the rear of the building. Your 200 foot pre-connected 2.5 isn't going to get you there. So a lot of it is, spec your truck out for what you need, design it for what's going to work for you. There's some of the things, unfortunately, we can't control, but even once you get that truck and you're putting it in service, still set it up to be functional. Don't just say, oh, well, this thing's not designed right, we can't use it, throw your arms up. Be a little bit creative. That's when we got to start kind of thinking outside of the box and saying, okay, how can we make this easier, and how can we make this a better apparatus to use it for what we're going to need it for? So again, going back to even with some of the things with the trucks, there's a lot of different things that they can do now in those specifications to drop the hose beds on those. Like that last truck Steve just designed, that's a really good example of one. It's got significant amount of water, but again, in the back, it's got a low hose bed. So the biggest thing with that, again, just don't let the manufacturers tell you what you're going to need on your truck.
Couldn't agree more. Doc, you put a lengthy description or a post in the message board, chat board. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what we've talked about. I see you flipping through your notebook there like a mad scientist. So let's hear it.
There you go. You hear me?
Yeah,
Can you
we
hear me?
can hear you.
Okay.
Yep, we got you.
As with like apparatus design stuff, that's something I'm kind of new learning. I'm on the apparatus committee in my department, and we all have. There's a select few of us, and you guys know who those select few are. That we know what we want. And right now, we're kind of battling. Our chief and what they want to spend the money on is not on the same page as what we want. If that makes sense. And we're kind of fighting that right now. It's like, this is what's most practical, but maybe the cost isn't quite what the chief wants. So that's what we're kind of dealing with when it comes to apparatus stuff. But I agree, the low hose beds are the way to go if you can do it. Of course, I understand, you got to have water, but I'm not going to repeat what Steve already said. So, but as with the nozzle and stuff, anytime we have anybody new on probation, and of course they start out on the engine side of things, we have a particular hose deployment for hose load that we use, and it works for us, and that's what we teach. And we teach them that you know how to deploy it, and you need to start after you get proficient at deploying that hose line. With time, we'll show you, what the hose line feels like when you're flowing water, or what happens when you get a kink or two kinks, or if there's something wrong at the pump, or what it feels like if something's the line's clogged, whatever the case may be. That comes with time after we get them off probation. But I always tell them that you need to estimate your stretch. That is important. You don't want to stretch short, because then you're embarrassed, and it's like an fuck. Excuse me. Well, never mind. don't pull a Torres. Fuck it. And or you want to stretch too much, and then you got too many kinks in the yard, too much line in the hallway, or too much line in the room, whatever the case may be. But stretch estimation is important. And then after I teach, kind of go through those and start learning that. You need to know building construction. Look, this is a ranch style house. I'm gonna go through the front door. I know if I take it right, there's gonna be a hallway. There's gonna be 2 bedrooms, possibly a bathroom. It's probably an open floor plan. The back doors. There's gonna be a back door, a garage on the left, probably a kitchen on that side, et cetera, et cetera. If that makes sense. Or, oh, you know what? This is a 1 story in the front. We know this neighborhood, and it's a 4-story walkout basement. So that's definitely going to work. Or give me a little more work to get your stretch in. So, and then like, that's, I don't know. I'm rambling now. So, but yeah, that's just it.
No, that's good stuff, man. And by the way, I sold you $5 to the curse jar. So, hey, I wanted to give Aaron Sparks. Do you want to say something? You put a post up there. I don't want to put you on the spot. If you don't want to, just say no. But I think you had some good stuff in your message that people can learn something from.
Yeah, you there?
Yeah, go ahead, Aaron. You had a good little post.
All
I
right,
think it just went to me, so I wanted to give you the opportunity to tell everybody what you were saying.
Oh, I meant to send it to everybody. I guess it was still set on you, but sorry about that. I got all the kids out in the yard. But no, what I was saying we do with our stretches, I know we were talking about, comes down to basically is training. What our department does is we do a lot of afternoon stretches, usually after supper time, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, or if we're out late, just kind of discuss our setbacks. But, you know, it's more realistic. Everybody's home from work at 3 a.m. morning call that when shit's hitting the fan, that way you're already, you know, prepped and ready to make that stretch because you're out there with cars and trash cans and gates shut and whatever you run into, whatever obstacles you run into. You know, so we do a lot of late afternoon stretches. It's real easy to go out to your training pad and stretch in the same building over and over in an empty parking lot and whatnot, or whatever anybody's working with. But that's what a lot we do is late afternoon stretches.
Yeah, and I mean, I know a lot of departments don't do it, and in our area, you can get huge. Not necessarily in the city, but I've heard, and we've taught places where they have these contracts. Obviously, I'm pro union and all that, but they have contracts that if it's 78 degrees and 80% humidity and past 2:30 in the afternoon, they can't train. You know. But really you should be out there working when it's cold. You should, because, you know, the hose stretch is different when it's frozen. You should be out there, practicing when it's hot, because, you know, everything's harder when it's 100 degrees, before you're even in the fire building. And you should stretch, to your point, you should stretch in the dark with flashlights if possible, because a lot of times you're not going to have much light. You know, you're stretching down a gangway in between 2 houses to the back. I mean, you know, there'll be all sorts of stuff, and you got to stretch around in the yard and all that. You know, all practice. You know, it takes the reps and the muscle memory. So
yeah, we've ran into the same stuff as far as our union contract. You know, we get some guys that frown upon it, but you know, I guess it just depends what house you're at. Most of the guys don't matter, but we have our handful that want to make a fuss about it. But it is what it is.
Yeah, you know, and it kind of goes full circle. If stuff like that, it's contagious. If you have guys that are into the job, and it really takes 2 people, because it's been my experience. I mean, people don't want to be embarrassed. And for the most part, if a couple people are out drilling on something or training on something, for the most part, everyone's going to get out there and get involved. So, you know, sometimes it may start off with you out there by yourself, stretching, and, you know, your captain may not let you take line off the truck. So get some spare hose. And I know I just taught an academy class, and we were running short on reserve apparatus because we got, I don't know, 11 trucks on order now. So We were running short on reserve apparatus. We didn't have a apparatus for the academy. It would get pulled to go in service. So we took measurements and built hose beds out of wood fairly cheaply that matched the dimensions of our hose beds. I know a lot of these new pumpers come with like the speed trays, the plastic trays that you can load hose in. You can load that up by yourself and put it up on a table and practice stretching out of that by yourself. So there's really no excuse not to get a little work in if you want it. Dave, I saw you were over there in the chat. I just saw you sneak in, our buddy from the lake. One, how are you doing? And two, go ahead and throw out that comment about the your inline gauges and flow meters and all that.
Hey guys, I'm just some nobody hanging out, learning from you guys today. But over the last few years ago, we ordered triplet pumpers and then twin quints, and from shift to shift, station to station, we were having all kinds of trouble, and we got to looking. And this took quite a while to learn what was wrong. What we found was the three pumpers were built, and the gauges on the pump panel actually come into the pump in different places between the three trucks. The two quints are the same way. Then we started looking at the plumbing, and everything was before all the elbows, reduced, hard rubber piping to get around stuff. And our own specs had kind of hurt us because we wanted the pump panel body to be only, X inches wide and this and that. And the builder was like, sure, we'll build whatever you want. And that's how they did it. The other side of that is your flow meter needs to be calibrated, and you need to check that against a pitot every time and make sure that the numbers are going to match and work out. So that's kind of my spiel on that.
No, that's awesome. That's good stuff. I'm sure you're making Taurus's head explode, but
well, I mean, truckies and math, but it's really interesting once you dive into all that. We ordered purposefully 1,500-gallon pumpers to work as tankers. So they have 10-inch Newton quick dumps in the back, so they're 1,500-gallon pumper tankers. But then we couldn't figure out why that first in 1,500 couldn't like splash and dash with the quint when we get to something like if we needed to just do a quick reset on a condo before we got lines into play. It wasn't working. We couldn't figure it out. Well, it was a combination of that tank to pump valve. 525 gallons a minute is the max on that tank to pump valve. And then that automatic Akron nozzle that comes standard on all these, Smeal quints and stuff like that. So knowing that, we know that the most we're ever going to get out of that truck on tank to pump is 500 a minute. That affects how we run into our tactics. So blah, blah, blah.
No, that makes sense. It all goes back to what we said in the beginning is knowing your apparatus, and knowing how they're set up and what are you capable of, because everybody's situation's a little different. I'm a huge fan. We teach it. I love the Minuteman load, but the way our apparatus are set up, our pre-connects in the city now, we can't figure out a way to get it in there. So, you know what? Same thing. We can go back and forth, and I'm sure as the engine ops podcast evolves, we'll do stuff on different hose loads. We'll do stuff on different nozzles, and you could go smoothbore and fog and all this. You go Minuteman, triple flat. If you're good and you can get the job done efficiently with what you got, like what you load, that's what's important. I've seen a lot of fire, a ton of fire since I've been on, go out with 1 3/4 line with a fixed GPM fog nozzle. Do I love using smoothbores when we got them? Do I think we should use them for standpipe hops and 2.5? Absolutely. Did a ton of fire go out during the war years at FDNY using only smoothbore nozzles? Absolutely. Detroit, who's probably more fire in the last 2 decades than most places. I believe they only use fog nozzles. So clearly either one works. If you get in there, you push in, you get to where the fire is and you put water on it. It doesn't matter what you use. It matters how efficient you are, and if you train and you push hard, before you get that fire, and being proficient in that. So going through the comments, has anyone else got anything to add? I'm kind of rolling through these comments, seeing if we want to get Caitlin, you want to come on here? You got a nice little tip for judging distance?
Hi, guys. Yeah. So I picked this up actually last year at FDIC, and it really helped me to visualize distances. I'm terrible at it. I was working under High Reader, who would all but beat you in front of people if you messed up a stretch. So I had a guy who told me to lay out a 50-foot section of hose, casually walk it out like you're walking to an EMS call. Remember those steps. My steps are 18. So I know 50 feet, 18 steps. So in about 40 feet, I have 100 feet. And then I was able to go from walking from the ambulance in the driveway or on the street to the front door and judging how much section of hose I would need. And then when you get further into the house, say you're in the back bedroom, up the stairs, wherever that patient is, then you're able to judge how many sections it would take you to get up to there. I'm terrible at judging distances. It worked for me, so I've been trying to pass it on because it was something new that I haven't heard before. I also started doing it on inspections, warehouses, just anywhere. I probably sound like I'm OCD or autistic because I'm counting to myself all the time, but it really helped me figuring out distances.
That's a great tip. And just in general, I mean, the majority of our runs, most places, a fair amount, half or so, are medical runs. And we get to be in houses way more for medical call. Well, at least we used to till COVID, when we just told everyone to come outside to the curb. But, up until that point, we would go into all these houses. And if you're not estimating stretches, to your point, or when you get inside looking how the layouts are, or looking where the stairs are, because Tim and I will run into some weird construction where you'll find steps in some very, very weird locations, or you'll find basement steps under a hatch to where you got to lift the steps up like a trap door. You got to lift the steps up to get to the basement. So if you had a basement fire, you got to go find a trap door and smoke conditions. Like, good luck. We found access. The only access to a basement fire was down in a closet of a bedroom, down a ladder. Like, if you don't know all that's there when you're going in on these medical runs, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice, in my opinion. Right. Steve, we talked a little bit about the short stretch, and you briefly mentioned it, but what's everyone doing out there for your longer stretches? What are some techniques and stuff? I'd love you to lead us on a few things for the oddball beyond 200-foot stretches.
Oh boy, now you're really opening a can of worms. First of all, I'd like to address the allegations from Caitlin. The beatings would be in private, not in front of everybody. So we'll just start with that. Second of
all I heard was Steve beats women, and I just stopped. In today's society, you don't want to go there. So
anyway, we talked a little bit about short stretches, and we can get into a lot of stuff between short and long. I didn't know how detailed we wanted to go. Well, somebody mentioned, and I've forgotten who mentioned it before, about we no longer have pre-connected 2.5. So we've gone to the static bed with a hose bundle, so that for the long stretches, be it for a blitz line 2.5, or if you want to stretch 1 3/4 to the rear of an apartment complex, we can, off a 500-foot static bed of 2.5, we can stretch a line either 150 feet long right off the truck, or we can go 650 feet from the truck using a leader line. Again, something that needs to be flow tested so that you know where you're getting up and your pump discharge pressures are starting to get a little too high. But a leader line of 2.5, you can flow that easily with 100 or 150 feet of 1.75" on the end of that to give you a 650-foot line, which seems ridiculous. But 2 of the last fires I've had in the last several months, we've used leader lines because 200 foot was not enough. Now, we all know 98% of the fires we go on, 200 feet's enough. But you've got to be able to address those. So that's what we do. We use the static bed of 2.5 to 1.75" hose bundle, and then we can go up to 650 feet from the truck. So that's kind of how we're addressing it right now. Go ahead.
I think I know your answer on this, but it is a hot topic. So what are you using to gate that line from 2.5 to 1.75"? And what's your opinion on gated Ys?
Well, that's what we've been kind of moving away from, because right now our static bed of 3-inch is hooked to our portable deck gun on the tailboard. So that's not really an easy option for us to stretch for a trunk line for a gated Y and 2 1.75" lines. So we've kind of taken the stance that every company brings their own water. So you will stretch a leader line, you will stretch your 2.5 to wherever it's needed, your hose bundle. So actually, when we stretch it, our hose bundle is not connected to the 2.5. They're next to each other in the hose bed. So the officer will grab the hose bundle, the nozzle firefighter grabs the 2.5, and then it's just a 2.5 nozzle. They spin the tip off and hook your 1.75" straight to the nozzle, or you can take the nozzle off, whatever you're fancy. So they have a couple of options there. So yeah, we prefer the 2.5 leader line, and everybody brings their own. They bring their own water. That way, if we need to stretch further, so if we're in an apartment complex and we need to check the exposure next to us, if we didn't stretch far enough with our trunk line, they'll be able to stretch it a little bit further with their line. So it gives a little more flexibility, and then everybody has their own line, and it just keeps the whole shutting lines down and causing that water pressure or water hammer from line to line from happening. So we'll see how it works. It's still in a development stage. We're still playing with it. So we'll see. More to come.
I guess point of reference we always teach is if you're going to do that stretch and hook to a nozzle, if you don't have a bell reducer or whatever, you need to tie open that gate on that 2.5 nozzle, correct?
Yeah, it's always a good idea. Just keep it from getting kicked shut. So if you have the time, you can spin the nozzle off. Our hose bundle does have a bell reducer on it to go straight to the 2.5, or you just spin off the tip. But yeah, you do need to tie the nozzle open.
And I guess the idea would also be to try and get that 2.5 nozzle into a position to where if you were to lose the building, have to back out, or have a sudden change in fire behavior, you can operate that 2.5 as a 2.5, knock down large volume of fires, etc. That's the goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how ours is set up. On our 1.75", you spin it off. You got an 1.25" shut off pipe. So in case it hits the fan, you can back it down, and now we got a 2.5.
Yep.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, so we have some of that, and then we have our fixed gallonage fog nozzles, the new ones. Actually, you can spin off the tip, and they have a 15/16 slug permanent tip in there that we can, if the nozzle clogs or the fog tip breaks or whatever, you could spin that off, and you just got a smooth bore then. So underneath.
Jeff, what we've been doing, I switched my kid's headset, so hopefully I'm coming through better.
Is that your kid's Xbox
We
headset?
actually
That's
take
awesome.
a half-pitch. It's just Nintendo Switch, but yes. I'm gaming now, as my wife just told me. What we did to tie our 2.5 open was take a carabiner on a pressure cord and wrap it around on a half-inch, and you can kick that as much as you want, and it still won't close on us. And how we got our are basically our loads that we're using on our bundle lines is the Chicago skid load. And it's probably one of the best lines that I could say I've commandeered from all the places I've fan or rode to take back to a three-man company.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Chicago skid load's awesome. We when I started at Eureka, everybody in the area that we ran with, it's almost 20 years ago now, but everyone had those, and gradually over time, everyone went away from them for the most part, and I don't know why. I think it's a pretty versatile line. Torres had pictures up. I think he's going to show us what we're talking about if you're unfamiliar. Look at him using technology. Got it all figured out there, Mike. You had it up earlier.
It's up right now.
No, he had the pic. There it is, right up top. Awesome. That's good stuff.
Here it is. This is, yeah, here it goes. There's behind this gated Y, there's an 1.25 inch shutoff pipe. So it's 4 to make 3. So 4 lengths of 2.5 make 3. I know on our rig on 54, they do 2. So we had 2, 3 to make 2. So you have 3 lengths to make 2. I talk to all these guys. I go to all these classes and I hear so many ways of loading this hose. They've been doing this, God, since the inception. I shit you not. And it hasn't changed. We haven't done anything different. This works. The reason why I had to ask an old timer why this was like this, why they do it like this, because this is the exact length of a city lot. So they're able to go an entire city lot up to the 3rd story if they have back porches. That's why they designed it. That's why they've never changed it. Is it right? Sure. I mean, it works for us. Everyone does their own little thing. We don't have a set standard for our pre-connects. We call it quick water, but our pre-connects are just still flat. Nothing special. We can rotate them, spin them on our chest, or the nozzles on our chest. However way you want to do it, whoever's doing whatever you want. The city's simple. They break everything down for us because I'm dumb. It just tells you everything it has. I mean, it breaks down. They took the pitot gauge and did it for us. So if you ever want to look at it, it's always, all the information's here. I mean, they do everything for us, which is sweet. And it's just, hey, if I ever need to know what I need to do, I know what I need to do. You know, it's not a big deal. They even have all the every length of hose on an engine. I mean, what's awesome about us, and I heard all you guys say the same thing, is that you guys are we're identical. Every 96 every engine, 96 of them, they're identical. I can go to the exact same compartment. 9 times out of 10, they're the same thing. There are a few companies that run a little different with a couple hose loads, but not too many. And the other of them are, you know, they have either longer, you know, what I like on the pre-connects, we put like a 6-foot drip or 6-foot line, just so you can break it down easier on the ground versus going up there and trying to take it off the swivel. There is a name for that swivel. I don't know what it is again. I keep forgetting what the fucking thing is called. But I'll remember eventually. But we have that, and then a couple guys have the trash line, ghetto line, garbage line, whatever you want to call it. There's just 200 feet. Like I said, I wasn't accustomed when I came to 54 coming from another house. We've never used pre-connects. Here, they use pre-connects a lot, and we always came off the rear. And they also didn't do something I always made fun of, was this gated wide right here. There was only one 1 inch and 3/4 on there, and that was ours. So if you wanted to get another line, guess what you're doing? You're going to your fucking rig and get another line. You're not tapping into ours. That's different where I'm at now. They tap into this. You know, they'll grab the trash line, which is 200 feet or 150, and they'll go to the 2nd floor if the fire's on 2. You know, this is very common. I'm not used to it. I wasn't used to where I came from. We'd always say, come off the rear, come off the rear, and that's what we got. It's really simple. It's 7, 7, and 7. There's 700 feet at 2.5 here, 700 4-inch, and then you go up to the officer side, and it's same thing. There it is right here. It's just going to be another. It's just right now they have a 250/50 on it. A lot of people, a lot of places like to put the, we like to put the inch and a quarter shut off pipe. We got reach in case we got to do big fire, big water. So we'll drop 2, we'll deck on it, drop 2, move away, give room for a top water or snorkel, and we'll drop these down. But what I love about it's simplistic. It's simple. You can't screw it up. I love the horseshoes, the direction of travel. You just set them down on the ground, and they go in the direction you want to go. So if you're, I always say this is the arrow. You're going this way, that's the way they flank off. You don't have to throw them all over the place. You got shit everywhere. They got runners right there, boom, boom. There's usually a runner here, depending on how many horseshoes you have. But it's not simple. We had a fire yesterday, and I was on the engine right before we got off, and, you know, they, let's see if I can find it. I don't know if you guys can see it, but this was a pain in the ass because we couldn't get to the attic space. There was, go figure, it was a scuttle hole. You guys were talking about where weird places are. The engineer was just getting off, so he took some shots. He came with us, but
we're not seeing what you're seeing. I don't know what you're.
That sucks.
You got to click the different link. We're only seeing that screen. You got to you got to screen share from.
I got you. So how about now?
We got it now.
Okay. This was I was on, and I was backing up the guy. It was his fire, but this attic space, it's not livable, obviously. You would think with the windows, but it had a scuttle hole in the back. The engineer had to do some pictures, but I just want to point out, somebody said it earlier, sometimes they're in really weird places. I think, Jeff, you said something. There was a scuttle hole in the back stairwell of this, we would call a Chicago bungalow or a story and a half. Nothing real crazy here. Up in the back, I mean, there's only room for 3 of us to get up there. Put out, called it a day. Chuck did a fine job, but it just, you know, we had way too much hose. We pulled it off the rear. We had, I think we used 3 horseshoes. So I remember pulling off 2 of them, and we had way too much hose out. There was no need for all that. A pre-connect would have got that done. I mean, it's 50 feet to the back, 50 feet up to the front. That's it. And maybe 50 feet in the front yard. Right? It wasn't that big of a setback, besides the cop blocking the entire hydrant like a jag-off. But other than that, everything was fine. A little tussle with that guy, but it just, you know, slow is fast. Take your time with hose. It's me not always being on an engine. I find it, I turn the volume down, I slow down, I take a look what I have going on, and I just drop the hose normally. And any advice I can give to anybody, especially if you're not on an engine a lot, is don't just arbitrarily grab any piece of flank of hose and do whatever. Grab something that makes sense. Like, how about a coupling? Why don't we grab one of those and drag those instead of dragging like 2 feet of hose in a direction you don't know where you're going? I find that easy, for me at least, not being on an engine a lot. So that's the extent of my engine work. So.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, Mike. Grab couplings, and a lot of companies, like when I was on the 17s, I marked all our hose in midpoints. You know, we run 50-foot sections on our attack lines, so I would grab the midpoints and mark them, you know, with 17 and our colors. So you could either grab midpoints or couplings, and that makes it a lot more efficient. The one question I did have, based off your pictures, how are you running your bundles? Is it just bundles of hose, 1 3/4 inch with a nozzle that you hook up to that gated Y in a compartment somewhere or side of the truck?
Yeah, it's sorry, I should have probably showed you that part. We don't have good pictures of it. I was trying to look for it, but I can't find it. But what it comes off of is right here. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
So it would just hook up right there, and there's a tray. Most of the engines have the tray next to it. Some don't. Some do. Some don't. Ones that do run this, you just see the 1 3/4 hooked up, and it lays on the hose. This tray right above the 4-inch. There'd be a tray over this, and it just lay on top of that. And it's in a horseshoe, 200 feet, 150. It's usually 150 feet. I'm sorry, 150 feet tagged into there. Then they have a old hose on there. These are bungeed open or cut off, so you can't kick them off or shut them off. There's a bungee cord on the I'm lost for words, guys. The bail, Jesus. So you can't kick that closer open. So that's where it's at. And then the 1 3/4 or the 1 1/4 shut-off pipe, it's bond, it's a spin down. So if I have a problem, I wish there was a better picture of it. There's not. But you can spin that down and you're good to go for a 2.5. But that's just how it is. Some have, we still have some Lavernes, 3 of them. Actually, not anymore. They just got new ones. They got new E1s. But those had it on the left-hand side, vertical, and a horseshoe, and then you just pull it off there. But other than that, some just do 2 horseshoes and then 1 3/4 right up there, the horseshoe. So they grab the pipe, they grab this big monstrosity with the pipe and the 1 1/4 or the 1 1/4 hose and go 1 3/4. I keep saying 1/4.
And just so I'm clear, you the backup nozzleman, he's going to take all this. You're going to take what you need, and then the truck goes down the street and does a reverse lay to a plug. That's how you guys.
I wish the front. I don't know. They don't have the front bumper.
I think everyone's seen the Chicago front bumpers.
Yeah, the front bumper just has 175 feet of hose, 25 feet of soft suction, which we would say would be, it's just cotton jacketed hose, a 5-inch, and then everything else is 4-inch, which is 150 feet of it. It's just, accordion it, standing straight up with some belts. We usually just run that to the closest hydrant. We usually don't wrap a hydrant unless it's like a garage going. If it's a garage going down the alley, we'll stick the engine down the alley sometimes and hook it and go. But very rarely do we ever do that. It's usually we take the hose to the hydrant.
No, that's awesome. Perfect.
I wish I had the other picture.
And you're running 4 or 5-man engines.
Everything's 5. 5 on an engine, 5 on a truck, 6 on squads. The city is allowed 30 variances throughout the city. So that means at one point in time, there's 30 rigs, piece of apparatus they're missing 1 guy. So they'll be down to 4 guys. And that's a lot of contract. It's just, it's contractual. It's manpower. They've been bending the rules lately pretty bad. So I've been on a variance. We've had 4 guys the last couple shifts. It just is what it is. We can deal with it. It's not a huge issue. You got to remember, on an engine, you have, you got the officer, you got the engineer. The engineer just pumps. He drives and pumps. That's it. Very rarely do you see that guy hit a hydrant. Very rarely. Unfortunately, it is what it is. Then you have a hydrant guy. Hydrant guy does what he needs to do. The guy in the pipe, and then the backup guy. That's how the layout goes. It's just because we're manpower heavy. I didn't come from that world, so when I got there, it was a shock to me. I'm like, holy cow, we have all these people. But there are companies that aren't, great, and you're doing a lot of work because it's like working on a 2-3-man company, and that happens sometimes. You just have to step up your game. It is what it is. But I think somebody said it earlier. I don't know if it was Gary or somebody, but somebody said, slow it down. Just take it easy, And I can't speak for everybody, but even when I drill, if we do a drill on it, it goes pretty nice. I don't ever run. I know I see all these people on YouTube and all that stuff. They're running. That's great. I don't ever run. I don't have an urge to run. I miss stuff. I screw things up. I get in trouble if I don't slow down and pay attention. So there's a story of Eddie Enright. He told us a story to us once that they used to have the packs on the outside of the rig, and he used to have the 3/4 boots. So he would take and he'd reach down and he'd grab 1 3/4 boot, pull it up, and look at the building, walk a few more steps, pull up the next one, and then he'll get his pack, and then he'll look again, and he'll put his pack on. That allowed him enough time to slow down and see the bigger picture. So I really, I take that, even though we don't have that anymore, but I take that slow down method to heart. So I think slowing down is huge.
No, I got you. That's good stuff. Thanks for showing all those pictures. That's pretty cool. You got all that. Hey, Jared, I know you're a truckie, but your roots are on an engine and a quint. So I'd like to hear what you have to say. You've been sitting down there awfully quiet.
Yeah, it's not like me to be quiet, right?
Well, I guess we start talking friction loss and flows and all that, and you're just thinking about breaking shit and forcing doors and cutting roofs and throwing ladders, or making leather, or making dope ass leather shit.
Yeah, there you go. No, my roots are on an engine. That's where I really started becoming a fire nerd, as Mike would call it. Starting to learn our flows. A couple of things that I want to say is it's easy to get caught up in brands. It's easy to get caught up in fog nozzle versus smooth bore. I have my personal preferences. I know what I like. I know what I want. If it was my money, I know what I would buy. But at the end of the day, it's really just a game that we play of BTUs versus GPM. So do we have enough water to win? If we're putting out less than what we need to, we're going to burn that house down very slowly, courtesy of the fire department. It might look like we're doing some good, but we're not. We're just delaying getting back to the station. That's about it. So it is important to know your flow. I equate it to, going hunting. I'm not going to just randomly grab a gun and go out in the woods to kill something without knowing what caliber I've got and making sure that it's loaded and working properly. That's just being responsible, I think. And the other part is you do have to nerd out to an extent, because there's a lot of places they'll buy the new cool nozzle, or they'll go with a certain name brand and they're just going to put it on the hose they have. That doesn't really work sometimes. And then vice versa. You may have somebody who has cruddy nozzles and they go out and they buy this great combat ready hose or Mercedes hose or whatever, but it doesn't match the nozzle. So you can't just randomly put nozzle and hose together. There has to be some method behind the madness. You do have to do a little bit of research. Some of the stuff that's hugely kink resistant will perform very, very poorly if you couple it with the wrong nozzle. And then, the flip side of that is also true. You can have a great nozzle on crappy hose. Well, that nozzle is not going to perform like it should, or like you think it should, because you haven't done your homework. So it's easy to get caught up. I think it's important that we don't get caught up in a lot of that, because at the end of the day, all it's about is, do we have enough water to win this fight? That's it. But you do need to know what you're going to combat with.
I'm gonna agree 100%, Jared. As always, solid stuff. I guess the thing I would add is, because you hear something works in St. Louis, or you hear some works at FDNY or Chicago or Memphis or Elkhart or any of these places, like, it may not work just because it works for New York or for St. Louis doesn't mean, or Chicago doesn't mean it's going to work for your department. So the only way, you hit on it, we've said about it time and time again, is get out there and stretch and flow and figure out what's going to work for your area, your town, your manpower, your apparatus. You can, if you're in the market to buy anything, and I totally plan on coming back, one of our subjects of our episodes is going to be the whole attack package and how you figure that out. But the thing I'll say to piggyback off what you said, if you're buying or you're in the market, and whatever dealer you're working with, whoever's selling you your stuff, whatever company you're wanting to go with, if they won't give you some hose and nozzles to try out, or get someone, a rep from the company, to come out and let you try their stuff, then I just take it off the table. Don't buy anything because I say it's good, or Torres says it's good, or any of us on here says it's good. You need to figure out what works for you, because at the end of the day, and someone, Steve said it on here, be good at whatever you have. And if you're in the market to get new stuff, there's a lot of research, and you try as much as you can that's out there. If they don't give you hose and nozzles to try out, then I'm not buying your shit. Sorry. Dave said it best. The salesmen and the company reps aren't crawling down those hallways to get there, and it's not a fast process. Most departments, it could take years. I know our department could take decades to change something just because the way we purchase equipment. So there's that. Schultz, I believe you got something for us, and then we've been going. It's going to be up on 2 hours here shortly by the time we wrap up. So Schultz, let's hear what you got to say, and then we'll kind of go around the room and answer any questions anyone may have, and kind of let everyone get a final word that wants one.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing. I don't think anybody's touched on yet. I think it's super important to just take pride in what you have, whether you're a truck or an engine company or whatever. If you got to load that line well. It's got to be neat. It's got to be flat. It's got to be organized. Whatever load you pick, whatever you're pulling, it's got to be loaded well. And the line should be clean. You should know that you're loading dry line. All of these super basic things that kind of go back to what Jared was talking about earlier. Just we can get into the pitot tubes and all this stuff, but if your line is dry, it's loaded flat, and it's loaded well, it's going to pull well. So going from all the way to the super, super complex things all the way down to the basics, just make sure that it's flat, it pulls well, you got clean line, you know your tips work, and just doing that will go a long way. That's all I really have to add.
No, I mean, it's the saying, looks pretty, pulls pretty, and I think you can judge it most by a fire company by looking at their apparatus and looking at, their hose loads, if they have hose, and their tools. And, some of the busiest, best fire companies I've been around, their tools are spotless, clean, trucks clean and sharp. And these are companies going to a lot of fires on a regular basis, I get it. You can get into uniforms, and you could have a bunch of guys that their uniforms are raggedy and sloppy and all that, but you know what? Their hose is loaded up correctly. They train on a daily basis. All their tools are clean and their truck's clean. Those are the firefighters I want to work with and I want to be around.
Jeff, I agree. In teaching one academy with me, my hang up on loading 4-inch. If I can't hold a stick to the back of that stuff, you might as well rip all 800 feet back off and load it back up again. Nice, clean, flat folds. I don't care if you're going to 4 fires a day or 2 fires a year. There's no excuse for not loading your stuff nice and clean.
Yeah. And you'd be surprised to me, Tim, and Mike, and, other guys, the busiest companies I've seen in our department take the most pride in their stuff. They got the cleanest tools, the best looking hose lines, and their hose lines are coming off all the time at jobs, so, it's all about pride in your apparatus, pride in your house, pride in your assignment, and put in a little effort. So before we start wrapping it up, anybody dying to say anything, got any questions, want to challenge anything we've said? Like I said, it's all of our podcast. You guys are the listeners. You've bared with us for a couple hours, most of you, and love to hear any questions, comments, concerns, ideas you guys got. And crickets. Come on, it's not that scary. Once you start talking, it's no big deal.
Hey, Jeff, it's Doc.
Doc, what's up, buddy?
I just say, if you're going to be on the nozzle, just be confident in what you're doing. I'm not going to repeat like what Tim just said because he's preaching to the choir, I think, for the most part. Just be confident, be able to think on your feet, especially if you have low manpower, because you're gonna have to do your job by yourself, and the driver, the officer, they're gonna have their assigned jobs. So think on your feet, be able to call out what you want to do, and then sit down and talk with one another. Set up a game plan. Like I said, be flexible. So if you call out something, but the officer calls out something different, just do it. If you need to talk about it later, talk about it later. I don't know. Just know your shit or stuff. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. You're up to like 2250. So
okay.
Anybody else? Come on, don't be bashful. Hannah, you usually always have questions. Nothing for us today.
I got not a question, but just a follow up on kind of what Doc was saying and some of the other guys today. This stuff sometimes has to be really organic from down deep within you guys. And like for me, I'm an admin guy nowadays. I spend a 40-hour week and I'm doing all this stuff with our companies, but I don't want to say I'm not one of them anymore, but it's different now. And if I just go out there and I'm like, hey guys, you all should do a daily stretch or whatever, it goes over like a lead balloon, you know? This stuff's got to come from within you guys that are still out on the trucks doing stuff and growing together, because if it's just some like asinine order from a chief, unless that chief's out there going and doing it with you, you know, it's just really, they're not going to always take ownership in it. So you guys that are senior or have some experiences and have that desire to go out and do these things, like rock on, keep going, keep pushing, because that's the only way it's going to get better and some of that. So that's my ramble on it.
No, I couldn't agree more, Dave. Thanks for that, and thanks for what you do to try and push the message and get both O'Byrne and engine house training into your region, and try and push solid training. I couldn't agree more, and I think most people don't want to look silly, don't want to look stupid. I fell into teaching from Gary and one of the other owners that's not on here at Engine House. It was all a fluke. I had no plan on teaching. I just took a bunch of classes because I wanted to know what was going on and not look like an asshole at a particular incident. And then teaching just kind of fell into place at a very young age, both in time on the job and my actual age. And it kind of took off from there. So I think most people are driven. They just need people around them to push it. So anybody in here, they were mentioning, water boils from the bottom up, and a lot of privates are in here. A lot of newer people are in here. So we can all implement change and make the people around us better. So any other questions? Hannah, I think you started to talk when Dave got going. So you got anything for us?
I really don't. I'm just backseat firefighter trying to learn the job. So I'm taking notes. I'm writing down questions, topics, things that I need to learn, or that might help, generate those tactical conversations, kind of like what Doc was saying. But I just really appreciate you guys doing this. I'm always learning so much every time I get on here. So thank you. Keep it up.
Well, that's the point. And to your request, Tim had to jump off, but next week we're going to come back with search. Chad and Paul and them guys will probably be back on with most of us guys that do truck from Engine House to talk about search. And then I think the week after that, Tim is going to put some together for some fitness stuff. So that was your request. So that's coming down the pike. Nick, hey man, thanks for taking a couple hours. Juicy had to step off, but you're like the Highlander of the O'Byrne crew. You're the last man standing. What do you got for us as a wrap up?
First, thanks for the invite. It was a good time. The biggest is get out there, stretch your hose, flow your nozzles, understand what you have, and I'm not sure who said it earlier. I think it was Jay Smith, but whatever they give you, if it's a smooth bore or a combination, learn it to the best you can and make sure you understand how it works and just flow. I mean, that's the biggest. Just get out there and flow and drill. That's pretty much just me in a nutshell. Get out there and drill and understand how things work.
Yeah, that's awesome. As long as it's not that stupid nozzle that has like the 5 foot long pipe that bends at an elbow. If you got that, just throw that shit in the garbage. But anything else we can work with.
That'd be from TFT, the Vindicator nozzle, and I would burn it.
Yeah, throw that shit in the garbage. Couldn't agree. I agree more. So, without going through everyone, Steve, I definitely want to save you for last because you're the lead engine guy. But Gary, Torres, anybody, you guys got anything to wrap this thing up, or are we good to go?
Just real quick, one of the things to kind of build on what Dave was talking about with some of those things, you're hoping that your guys that are working on that truck every day are going out there and doing that, what they can to make that better. And, it's mentioned here a while ago, we've all heard it, water boils from the bottom. Every now and then you got to put a little bit more water into the pot to give them the opportunity to push them to go out there and make that a little bit better, practicing those stretches. We all have, that crew or that engine house or that group or whatever, where it's whatever's there is good enough. Oh, well, yeah, it's on the truck. It'll come off and it's not good enough. There's ways we can improve it. So, kind of to back up to what Dave said earlier, it's hard to do that from a position above sometimes to get guys to influence them because, the staff person is not the one pulling the line off the truck. But make sure that they have the opportunity, or they know they have the opportunity to initiate that change. Sometimes guys get hung up into the culture of that. Well, that's the way it's always been. Well, what's always been there doesn't always work. Times are changing. Things are changing. We can make this better. Just make sure that they know that they have the opportunity to be able to do that. With that, that's all I got. Thanks for having me on. Enjoyed the conversation. Enjoy everybody hanging out and spending some time.
Yeah, I'd also I'd like to piggyback off that last statement, and I agree, times are changing, but also sometimes the solution we can go overboard trying to fix a problem that's not a problem. So it's really a fine line between what you were saying, Gary, and changing shit just because we can, or just because
Sure.
If that makes sense what I'm trying to say. I don't have not a wordsmith to figure it out, but we don't need to change shit
I've
sometimes.
never heard you in a loss of words.
Well, I don't know how to put it. My
Depends on
cooler's
what you-
getting empty, so
Don't change
that's
it.
when I end.
Don't change
Yeah,
it for the sake of changing it. Change it to make it better.
God damn, that's good. You should host this shit.
I'm out.
That's how I know when to end this, when I start reaching in the cooler and there's less and less beers.
The only other thing I got that it was whenever Steve does his closing, he didn't mention anything about how he stretches his calves line. With that, I'm out.
Oh boy.
I missed the
We're gonna let
stretches what?
calves line, compressed air flow.
Mute.
So we'll let you stew on that, Steve. Mikey, anybody else got anything?
I got nothing. Thanks, guys. Love being here always.
Mike, we love having you, buddy. It's a good time. Hey, Dave, real quick, you posted something in the comments, and shame on me for not mentioning it. You want to give a brief plug to your conference, assuming it's still on as of this time?
In the comments, I like 100 times said revolutionary fire tactics at the lake a bunch to him. So I appreciate your patience, Jeff. All right, so we're still on 100%. July 17th through the 19th at the lake.
All right, so
The Ozarks.
We gotta get these guys some high-speed internet.
I guess at the
good.
lake, they're still using AOL with the dial-up shit, where you have the ringtone and all that.
Lake Town. Did everybody log off?
No,
Yeah.
you were. Hey, Dave, you're.
FirstNet hotspot here in rural Miller County.
All right, Dave. I muted Dave. It wasn't coming in. Look him up at the Revolutionary Fire Tactics at the Lake. It's in July. He's all over Facebook and all that. So he was on. We've had Engine House guys have taught there the last couple of years. O'Byrne's taught there the last couple of years. So there is some good stuff down there. With that being said, Steve, let's hear what you have to say. Wrap us up, and we'll go from there.
Well, I don't know that there's much more I can add to this. I would say just whatever it is you have, be the best at it. Stretch every day. Be ready to stretch at 0300 when you come out of the bunk, and it doesn't matter. You can stretch in the dark with flashlights. Pretty much that wraps it up for me.
All right. With that being said, bring episode number 4 to a close. I want to thank you all. It is very humbling. Every week we've had over 30 people tune in live. I'd love to see where the numbers are. Our previously recorded podcasts from last year, they've been getting a ton of hits as well. So it's humbling that you guys want to listen to us or at least be entertained by our misinformation. I don't know which one it is, but thanks for spending the afternoon with us, and we look forward to talking with you all next week.